Today we're talking about lessons you should learn if you want to grow your business. Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to talk about sourcing, some insider information that a lot of people just don't get when you're outsourcing. Now, we source similar items constantly, over and over and over and over again. And we've kept track of where we get certain things. We've got logs of everything we've pretty much purchased at specific places. And if you do this long enough, you're going to see patterns where it's more likely to find certain things, where certain places you always find this item or that item. That's key to your business. That's a lesson that everybody needs to learn. Keep track of it. Know where your stuff comes from. Know where the best stuff comes from. Eliminate sourcing spots that just aren't very good for you. Now, I've talked about one-offs versus bulk and such forth. Driving around randomly obviously isn't the best bet. Getting bulk or massive amounts of merchandise real easily or quickly or from one source is always the best. Now, one area that I pick up all the time and I do talk about are records. I got a nice big stack right here of some vintage records. Now, the sale these were all at, they were priced $1 a piece. Before I walked up and paid for anything, I reiterated they're $1 a piece no matter what, before I put anything on the counter, and I was reassured that's the case. If you wait to the end of the video, I'm going to tell you where I found these and key aspects of finding stuff just like this. Now, many people don't look at the records very closely. They just look at the covers to see who it is. Where I got these at, there was a high probability that there were going to be some signed, and I knew that going into this purchase. All of these are autographed. I got a huge stack of them, probably around 60 or so autographed. There's some that are much better than others, autograph-wise. This right here is Barbara Mandrell. She had a show. She's a country western singer, very well known in most cases. Billy Walker, another country one, autographed. I'm sure these are all legit. Many of these I've had autographs from that same person before. Still have my original images, or I can track them down online as well. Now, where these came from, I don't really need to question the legitimacy of the signatures. And again, wait to the end and you'll hear where they came from. But there's quite a bit of well-known Mel Tillis, Boots Randolph, Gene Cotton, Ronnie Cole, Sonny James, Chet McIntyre, Don Ho. Again, these are all autographed. Every single one of these. Lawrence Welk here as well. There's a bunch of better ones too, which I will save for a future time. I'm just trying to give you an idea and the insider aspect of finding things. Now, again, as I said, we source all over the place. But I know which places that I've been to net me the most stuff, that net me the certain items. People constantly ask, how do you keep finding this or how do you keep finding that? Like postcards, for example. Usually I source them from the same places I've been sourcing from for years. You know, I've talked about many of these locations, but I've got a chain, a network of people that I can contact or go by and check on and find that sort of thing. Certain people put certain things out on certain days. Keeping track of that information is key. Knowing when somebody's going to be somewhere, like at a sale or a show or a flea market, is always great. There's lessons to be learned from all of this. And lessons that I've learned for sourcing have saved me time, made me a ton more money, and eliminated a lot of the wasted time that I used to spend. So sourcing and narrowing down your sourcing venues is really something that's essential for everybody. Just driving around randomly, hoping to find something at a garage sale, obviously, as I said, is not that practical for scoring. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to find good stuff at a garage sale, but it's hit or miss. Around here, there's so few garage sales with the pandemic that you can't just randomly drive around. Even if I tracked them down, they're so far and so few out there that it would be a big waste of time if somebody beat me to the punch at any one of those sales. So learn some lessons from sourcing trips when you go out. If you don't find a ton of stuff at certain garage sales or certain neighborhoods, I usually avoid certain areas. Or like, let's say with records, there's certain areas that the certain type of record that's worth more will show up routinely, more so than anywhere else. You might have a 10 times better chance in finding a specific rare record in a certain area of town versus another area of town. You know, demographics play into all of these. And that can go for going to flea markets, going to thrift stores, and the whole works. Randomly driving isn't great, and randomly stopping at stores isn't great either. So again, keep track of these. Keep a little notebook in your car and where you went. Pop it into a spreadsheet at home when you get there and track what's good places to go and what's not a good place to go. Track by days of the week even. You'll be surprised. Some days of the week, certain stores put a whole bunch of stuff out, and then they may not put anything else on the floor for 2 or 3 days. Some stores don't do anything over the weekend and Monday's busy. Some stores don't do anything, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday is busy. It depends on the store or the establishment you're going to. So these are all key things, key lessons that you should definitely learn while you're doing this. Like with the records in general here. I knew what to expect because I've been to these types of sourcing places before. I look for them. The specifics on this I look for in general. Just like anything I find, militaria, there's usually very specific places I can track down and find militaria. Like auction houses, for example. There are some that have people that are into military at those auctions that run them. So they are more prone to buy stuff that they know or to auction stuff that they know because they can get a better idea on the relative value of it before they take it on consignment or buy it to resell at an auction. So take all these sourcing aspects into account and learn from every one of these that you do. Tracking them is key. I keep a log of everything like that, and it has greatly helped me save time, as I said. If you're constantly traveling around and you stop at multiple different thrift stores, you might not remember what you got where. One thrift store in your stop may always net you nothing, or a $5 item or something that's just not worth your time. It may cost you more in gas just to drive out to that place and find nothing. So again, these are lessons that you can learn from all of this. Now, I don't shout out this very often, but I do have a Patreon page, and we do go into a lot more detail on things on my Patreon page. I do have a link to it in the description box down below as well. So if you're into more content, you want more in-depth stuff, more insider stuff, that's where I keep most of that stuff, on my Patreon page. If you look at the end of the video too, you'll see all those names on there. Those are people who have supported me through Patreon through the time frame that I've been on. So you can see the folks in there. If you support the channel as well, you will get your name in that list also. So just FYI, that's one of the perks of being on the Patreon page. Now let's talk about the records at hand and where I got them and why I can expect to find autographed records at these places. Now, I've sourced all over the place. If I go to a thrift store, the chance of me finding an autographed record are probably almost zip. I have found 1 or 2 in my life, but that's about it. Same thing with like signed autographed books at a thrift store. Some thrift stores I've found several, other ones I've never found an autographed anything that was legit. Now, certain areas that I go to that would sell records or would be auctioning off records would be like a radio station. Radio stations have a inner circle to the artists that are promoting records. Now, getting records from a radio station doesn't mean that I drive to a radio station and buy them from a radio station most of the time. Large chunks of collections are given to auction houses for money. They'll go ahead and say, come grab a whole stack or shelves of them. Many radio stations may have tens of thousands of albums and records that they were given to play on the radio or for promotional aspect. So in general, getting stuff from those sorts of collections will net you better material most of the time. Now, a lot of those, as I said, will go to the auction companies locally, and that's how they show up for sale. Some radio stations who went under or have had warehouse sales, I've been able to get directly from the radio station as well. This is a BOLO area to look for no matter what. How do you know it's a radio station collection? So you can call around when you see records that are up at auctions and ask, did it come from a private individual or did it come from a business, and would they know what type of business it came from? Many times, and I mean a majority of the time, I'm able to track down that it came from a radio station, and in fact, in some cases, I've called around and called the radio stations to confirm where they came from. Some radio stations will have better material than other radio stations, depending on the genre of music that they are playing. Almost every town has a bunch of radio stations that's any comparable size. They do liquidate a lot of the records because that's not the material they use to play anymore at the radio stations. Some of it may be donated, some of it comes from colleges as well and things like that, but the auction houses are usually the best, or sales like that. Just like estate sale collections of records. Many times if you track down who the estate was from, you can find that they worked at a radio station, hence there'll be a lot more opportunity to get better records. Promos, records that may have only been played once, ones that are signed. If you're getting them from a collection like that, you're most assuredly the vast majority of the time, guaranteed that they're real. All of these were probably signed when those performers were at a radio station, maybe giving a DJ interview or something like that. Now, we found some key autographs at places like this. Elvis Presley, for one. I've found Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr before as well. They came from record stations. At least the collection did. Again, it doesn't mean I always went to the record station to buy them. But that's an insider without a doubt. You have a higher chance on finding the promos as well. Promos are usually worth far more than the standard stock edition of any record. Because a promo was limited, there's usually something different from the stock record. The stock record is the one that's mass-produced for everybody else. In some cases, songs and versions of songs that are on a promo may not be on the final version of the record as well. Or there may be a stereo version that may not have been released anywhere else but on a promo disc. So again, this is an inside area that I always look for and I always dig into. Like these records as well, at $1 a piece, I'm almost assuredly to get 20 or better for every single one of these. And I got a big stack, as I said, 60 or 70 autographed. So you can multiply that 60 times at least 20 or more, and that's going to be my average. Now, that's my average for just selling them as they are. I've gotten really into doing PSAs on everything these days because the amount of return on my investment has been huge lately on autographs and PSAs. That market is climbed steadily, and I mean steadily, and then drastically as well. Now, some items like, say, an Elvis autograph, it costs $150 without a discount to get a PSA on it. Now, if you're a business seller on Amazon, you can get a discount from PSA through Amazon as well, if you didn't know that. Now, like with some of the Elvis autographs that we have, if I just went to sell them as an autograph without a PSA on it, I might get a third or less of what I could get for it if I had it PSA'd. So maybe I'll get $300 or $400 if at best on an autograph that's not authenticated. Now with the authentication, I may get $1,200, $1,500, $2,000 for that exact same thing. It's going to take you some time. It's got to get sent off. It's got to come back and the whole works. So there's going to be time into it and money. As I said, $150 for Elvis. Now with some of the other autographs, like the Frederick Dent Grant autographs that we have, they're $50 to have them authenticated. But it's a difference in price from me being able to sell them for $300 or $400 to possibly getting $1,200, $1,500 or even more at a high-end auction like Heritage or something like that. An auction house, too, a high-end auction house, which will net you more money, will be more prone to take something with the PSA than they ever would be prone to take something without it. PSA guarantees that if they sell it, it's somebody else's problem if it turns out not to be real. They did their due diligence by checking out that the PSA was an authentic one. So these are just aspects of it. All of these will not be PSA'd, but there are quite a few of the rare ones in here that I will have PSA'd. The ones I'm not showing today, I'll probably show out in a video once they come back with PSAs, so I can give you a breakdown on the costs to send them in and the expected to return revenue from the increase from having a PSA and authentication on the autographs on these. So anyway, that's just a touch on this area. That's a good bolo. That's an insider secret all the way on where I source autograph records and have a 10 times higher chance of finding them. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
You gotta hear 'em, you gotta feel 'em. You gotta taste them to believe them. New Keebler Crunch Twist.
The Keebler elves twist two crunchy snack sticks together to make Crunch Twists unbelievably crunchy, unbelievably tasty in nacho cheese, toasted corn, and cheddar.
Crunch Twist, the new sound, the new shape, the new taste in stacking.
From Keebler.